On this episode, we're going to be talking about the best camera ever made. This is TWiP. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. I'm your host, Frederick Van Johnson. This is going to be an interesting show because aside from my admittedly clickbait title of this show, the best camera ever made, there's a couple of other things that we want to talk about, and that in no particular order, but they are in order that I'm going to mention them. There's the best camera that's ever made. We'll get to the bottom of that thing. We're going to talk about DJI and the corruption controversy that those guys are dealing with, the employee corruption controversy, and how will that affect DJI as a company, and how will that affect DJI competitors? I'm sure a lot of them are dancing a jig right now, but we're going to talk about that a little bit. And if we have time, we're going to talk a little about trade shows and that world. We're getting into trade show season. In fact, one of the sponsors of this week's episode of TWiP is WPPI, the Wedding and Portrait Photographers International Conference that's coming up in February. But I wanted to talk about trade shows in general, and are they worth it? Do you find that they're worth it? Does Wayne find that they're worth it? I have some sharp opinions on it, which I've shared on This Week in Photo before, and I want to sort of open up that nut again and talk about trade shows in general. And should you be spending your hard-earned money to fly to where they are, or can you grok all that information from YouTube videos like this or from blog posts, et cetera, et cetera? So joining me to step through those topics today is my good friend, Mr. Wayne Johns, also a TWiP Pro member. Wayne is here in the middle of the night. What is it, 2 a.m. where you are, Wayne? What's going on?
It's 2:15 in the morning here, and I've been up since 6 a.m. the day before.
Wow. Well, everyone in the chat room, give a clap emoji for Mr. Johns for taking time out of his REM sleep to join us on an episode of This Week in Photo.
I apologize to everyone watching. It's not the best look that I've got this time of the morning.
I'm digging. That's kind of an Aquaman look you got going on there. You know, you need some long hair. That's very cool, man. So before we get started, what's going on in your world? I know you have a ton of projects going on. You're working on audio stuff, obviously, photography. I've seen your posts. You're posting regularly in the TWiP Pro community. Amazing shots, making everybody cry. Thank you, man. What's going on in the John's world?
I'm busy, man, at the moment. I'm so busy. But funny enough, I'm still playing a little bit of catch up from last year in editing and retouching about 7 or 8 shoots. So I'm just trying to get through those and catch up a little bit whilst planning more. And I've got more events coming up. I've got more live shows coming up. I've got a trip to Dubai coming up for a conference.
Dubai.
And
wow.
Yeah. So that's for Fujifilm. So yeah, man, it's crazy at the moment, and trying to get more YouTube videos out, and obviously the podcast channel, and trying to get all the guests interviewed. It's crazy town. I ask myself why I do it, but yeah, it's fun.
You know why you do it, because you do it for the same reason I do it, because we love this stuff, and you wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, in what other era could you do this? You know, you couldn't. So you're riding the wave of content creation, man. So
yeah, man.
Well, cool. Well, we got a lot, like as I said in the intro there, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about on the show, from the best camera stuff all the way through to DJI and trade shows, etc. Before we get started, speaking of trade shows, I want to thank our sponsor for this episode of This Week in Photo, and that's our friends at WPPI. WPPI, in their words, they say, this is what I want to say. WPPI gave me some specific things to say, some messaging that they wanted to get out, and it's all very true. So I'm gonna read it, but then I want to tell you what I think a little bit. So basically, they want to let you know that you can learn superior technical skills and shooting styles. You can build new relationships to grow your business. You can experience new products, photo gear, and other solutions from manufacturers. Discover the competitive and affordable ways to grow your business. Meet some of the world's finest photographic instructors, and more importantly, you make an investment in yourself and your future. And what I would add to that, all that is true, but what I would add is, that's not exactly what WPPI is for me. You know, it is all those things 100%, but it is also the camaraderie and the meeting other photographers and seeing other people in the industry that are kind of doing the same thing that you're doing. It's those hallway conversations that you have at WPPI. It's the after hours events where you're, you know, talking about, hey, why do you shoot Panasonic, or why do you shoot Fuji, or why do you shoot whatever? You know, it's the human interaction that you get at an event like that you don't get behind a keyboard or in front of your phone. So the bulleted list that they gave me is 100% true. You get all those tangible assets, but the intangibles, I think, are even more significant, because it's the one time of year. If you pick one trade show to go to, that's the one time of year that you get to kind of go to a family reunion, or, you know, your high school reunion of all the photographers that you've seen online. And not only that, as when you, at these kinds of events, people like Wayne Johns and other sort of top end working photographers that are in the trenches doing stuff, that's the only time where you can go tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, Wayne, you know, I noticed you shoot XYZ brand. Why do you shoot that again? I'm thinking about buying it, but why? You know, can you give me one or two sentences as to why you use that piece of gear? So that's what I wanted to say. WPPI, is one of those shows. For me, it's one of two shows that I like to, well, there's a couple of shows I like to attend, like the Photoshop World shows and all that. But the tentpole shows for me are WPPI, Photo Plus Expo, and some other smaller events that happen throughout the year. But if you're a wedding and portrait photographer, WPPI is kind of the show that you have to be at, or else you'll get that FOMO, the fear of missing out. So WPPI gave me a link to share with you guys. It's wppiexpo.com/TWiP. If you use that and you haven't registered already, you'll get a free expo pass, which is $30 to get into the show floor. So if you want to get in free, just use that wppiexpo.com/TWiP, and you can get into the show for free. And that's all I have to say about that. All right, guys, let's Wayne, let's dive in. Our main topic is one that you and I were chatting about today through, what was it? Through Messenger, or no, it was on TWiP Pro. We were talking on TWiP Pro. And that's the idea of what's the best camera that's made today. And of course, that's hyperbole. There's hyperbole. There's no best camera that's made today. They're all great for the most part. But we get on this release schedule, or the manufacturers are on this release schedule of, what is it, like every couple months, quarterly or something, there's a new awesome, I gotta have it camera body, which just like your phone, when Apple comes out, or Android, Google, whoever, Samsung comes out with a new phone, yours instantly looks like crap, right? So you have to go get that new one. On this show, I'm really glad that you're here, Wayne, because you are one of those people that you beat the hell out of your gear. You use it. And you upgrade because you have to upgrade, you know, because you need the new gear that's going to do something specific. What do you say about that? What is your opinion on that whole upgrade conveyor belt that we're on with these new camera bodies coming out regularly?
Yeah, I think it's changing a little bit now, but over recent years, say the last 5-10 years, I mean, back then the two main giants, I think Canon and Nikon, were probably the most guilty for bringing out a new body with a new product number. And when you look into the guts of it, it's still the same plastic body, and it's got a little firmware upgrade, but they've released a whole new system. Yeah. You know, and I think they're very guilty of that. And for a lot of years, I think Canon and Nikon have milked the absolute hell out of the consumer market on those type of products. Yeah. You know, you get the Canon EOS 5000, and then you might get the 5050 or the 5500, and at the end of the day, there's almost zero difference between them. But hey, how to milk a market, and as consumers, I mean, damn, they fell for it. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. But is it? I mean, to be fair to the manufacturers, it's you know, like you and I were talking about in the chat there. It's a lot of it is, you know, these companies are beholden to their shareholders, right? So the pressure is on to make more and more money
every single quarter, quarter over quarter. You got it's the trend line has to be up and to the right, right? So how do you keep it up and to the right without releasing a new camera body every single time, and once you do it once, do you set a precedent for your consumers that, it's almost like a subscription. I know I just bought this camera and I know in 3 months, 6 months or whatever, there's going to be a new body and I need to start budgeting for the new camera, after this one I bought. I mean, is there a way to get out of that?
Do you know what? I think when you look at the markets, when you look at the sort of, what we know as the professional market, the people that earn a living from their camera, that run businesses, that market is quite small in comparison to a consumer market for people that just buy a camera because, hey, they fancy taking up photography and they want to look good walking down the road with a big lens on a decent sized body. And I think the manufacturers were guilty of playing that a little bit, knowing that these consumers, as the hunger got more and more and the interest in photography grew, then, hey, they were just caning these things out, knowing the consumer is going to buy them. And knowing that, hey, no matter what they produced and what they put out, they're always going to get brand new sales because all the gear whores out there always want the latest and greatest new tool with all the new features in it, even though, a lot of the amateur worlds that just carry as an aesthetic, can shoot for shit, really.
Yeah, and I'm on that train. Yeah, I agree. And that whole train of buying the latest and greatest piece of gear, right? I'm on it too. I want the latest phone. I want the latest drone. I want the latest mirrorless camera. It goes on and on. There's several niches that I am beholden to and I want it. But when I look at photography, and especially as I get older, maybe it's a factor of me getting older, as I get older, as money is not as much of a factor. I mean, it was back in the day, it was like, wow, I'm going to save up for a year to buy that camera. But as you get older, presumably that becomes less of a factor, hopefully. But my what do you call it? The feeling that I have of not wanting to buy new crap is stronger now. Right. And I don't know if it's the minimalist in me. Am I a minimalist now? Because I just want less stuff. But the stuff that I want it to do more. Right. So, But then at the same time, like manufacturers, like I'm a Panasonic shooter. I love my Panasonic Lumix gear and I'll shoot that forever. But I want them to stay in business. I want, and the way that they stay in business is by putting new bodies out, innovating, better sensors and all this stuff. So what's the win there? Do we count on a constant influx of new people that don't know any better to buy new stuff so that the people that do know better can thrive? What's the answer?
Well, it's funny because if you take a look at the markets, ever since mirrorless was introduced, the DSLR market has been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. Yeah. And, Canon, even though they were the biggest of the DSLR brands and, owned over, 60% of the market or something in years gone by, Nikon then started suffering when mirrorless started coming in to the degree that they were financially in trouble DSLR-wise. But I think everything's changed. I mean, DSLR sales, because of things like smartphones, where the quality of those cameras are getting better, and the people that wanted to carry a camera around are now happy to just carry a smartphone around. Right. So it means the DSLR market and the mirrorless market is reducing and reducing. So I don't think they can produce as many bodies now as often because there isn't the mass market that was buying the numbers of bodies in the first place. That market is shrinking, and I think people are getting wise now that people that couldn't really operate a camera are happy with smartphones. So the cameras they now have to produce have to be more professional and more complete inside with all these new features and the way video is going, because people know how to use this stuff now. Yeah.
Yeah. Or they don't have to know how to use this stuff in the case of smartphones, right?
Well, they don't. Yeah, exactly.
Boot up the camera and aim it, and
clever.
The droids take over, and you pretty much have a picture, composition notwithstanding. So, but even that, they're working on ways to get around the whole composition issue to make sure that you can fix that. But with that said, where in your opinion, and based on your daily work, where are the areas for improvement where a manufacturer can create a camera that would entice you to upgrade? What's missing? And what do you shoot? You're shooting Fuji, right?
I'm shooting Fujifilm. Yeah, I mean, as we said in one of our previous ones, I'm a Fujifilm ambassador, and I have been for a few years now. But I made the switch from Canon after 23 years to Fujifilm before I was even invited to be an ambassador. So, I've moved on my own steam, and medium format wise, I used to shoot Hasselblad and Leica, but of course I shoot Fujifilm on the GFX series now, and I mean, like we've said, cameras are so good nowadays. They do far more and far beyond we could probably use as features at any one time.
Yeah.
And I think, especially the amateur market, the pro-am market, they're all wanting 300 frames a second with zero lag in continuous focus tracking, and they want it to make the damn coffee, and moaning it's only got one card slot, and all this. I think there's just too much fuss over a lot of things, because if you took all those features away, then half of those people couldn't shoot their cameras properly anyway, because they rely on all this technology to compensate for the skill set.
But is it so, devil's advocate, I already know the answer to the question, but if you boil it down to, f-stop, shutter speeds, ISO, the exposure triangle, right? And then you sprinkle in composition and, those sorts of things to get a good photograph. If it's just that stuff, you could get a view camera like Ansel Adams used to shoot with, right? So you get a view camera, and if you know your craft, you can come away with brilliant work with a view camera just by manipulating the f-stops, or the f-stops and the shutter speeds and the film emulsion speed that you're shooting with. So but the other side of the devil's advocate side of it is, we're not there anymore. We don't ride horses anymore. We don't wash our clothes in the river anymore. We have technology to help us with this stuff. So shouldn't we use it, right? Or should we know the rest of it? Where do you fall on that?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a mix of both, really. I think there's a lot of people, and this is good in both ways, because creativity is not all about being technical. There's a lot of people out there that. You start throwing numbers at them in terms of ISO and aperture and things like that, and there's people that numeracy wise get confused with numbers. I know a wedding portrait photographer that would rather all the symbols on my camera were colors rather than numbers, because the numbers confuse her.
Oh yeah.
But she's an amazing photographer. But you take instances like that, not everybody is so technical, but you might get people that are artistic that have a really, really good eye for a shot or composition or a scene, or have visually they can have, they see graphical elements and contrast and tone, but they may not understand that in terms of a camera's point of view, in terms of an exposure triangle, or all the numbers and how it all works. But you give them a camera that can do most of that work for them, and they will still go and shoot amazing imagery. Yeah. So in that respect, that is where the tool is helping the artist, who may not be the technical artist that perhaps most of us are from the manual days or from the film days.
Yeah.
Whereas you get that technical artist that will have that box of tricks. If you say take film out of the equation, video out of the equation, have that box of tricks with all those features in their camera, probably like myself. And I've got the damn thing set on manual, and I probably don't go through 70% of all the other features that are in that camera.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue, because there was a Troy Miller, who's a member of TWiP Pro. He does the TWiP Pro photo critiques with me, and he wrote a blog post and posted it in the community, and it was about why he shoots aperture priority. And I commented on the post, and I forget exactly what I said, but I was talking about how some pros will shoot manual and be religious about it, and poo-poo anybody that shoots anything other than manual as not being a real photographer. And I sort of come at, I want to get where you think about this. I sort of come at it from the standpoint of, come on, dude, you spent $3,000 or whatever on this precise optical technical supercomputer engine, and you're not going to use any of the stuff that you bought on principle.
Yeah, man. Well, I was gonna say, about people understanding, not understanding now. Does that make them as photographers a good thing or a bad thing? Should they be doing it? Should they not be doing it? Not at all, man. I mean, they should be creating whatever. I mean, if cameras can help them get the imagery that they're after, even if they're not technical, but they have the eye for it, then surely that's got to be a good thing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's got to be a good thing if people can create.
But does it make them better though? I mean, is it good to have the foundation of knowing what you're, even if you like the example I used in TWiP Pro was driving a manual transmission car versus an automatic. You don't need to know how to drive a manual car nor to drive an automatic, but it sure does help to know what's going on in the car when you're driving the car. Does that logic translate over to photography, you think?
I think this is where consumerism is guilty of this. I think with the cameras doing so much for people nowadays, people almost forget to perhaps go back to the foundations to better their skill sets with the technology they've got. I think we're all guilty of it probably with some areas of technology, but I mean, I think when you come to that, it doesn't hurt to go back to the foundations, and I think it can only make you better on top of what you're already doing. It can only make you grow from strength to strength, even if you learn a little bit of it. Maybe not to the extent that we do in the kind of things we do in the commercial world, but surely if you can learn the foundations of something and it doesn't take you that long to understand or put into practice, and it makes you better, I can't see why would you not want to do that?
Yeah. And especially if this is your passion, right? If this is what you're going to be doing, you want to become a professional photographer, you want to be Wayne Johns one day, right? It makes sense to use good concrete on your foundation, right? To build on top of it. So yeah, I don't know. So what's the solution? I mean, the whole title of this episode was Best Camera Ever Made, right? So let me throw this in there, in terms of that whole upgrade cycle that people get caught in and the manufacturers are sort of in. There's a company, Autorama. You know Autorama, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So Autorama has a gear buyback program where you can send them your gear and they'll give you cash or credit towards new gear, right? So is that a good way to sort of keep, to placate that inner demon that's looking for a new gear, or sort of get on this upgrade cycle, but add a recycling component to it, or are you just feeding the demon that way? What do you think?
Well, you are feeding the demon, but at the end of the day, you're still feeding the demon anyway, because people are still going to buy it, whatever. I feel, if they can't afford it straight away whilst they've got their current camera, then they're probably going to sell the current camera, have the cash for a day and then buy the new one the next day or even the same evening on probably Amazon or something like that. You know what I mean? So if it's easier for people to do a buyback or a trade-in, whichever way you want to look at it, and they can do the transaction that way, and why not? If they're getting a similar price, if they're then selling it privately, then surely that's a help for them. Good for the manufacturer, good for the store. And good for those gear-hungry people that feel the need to upgrade to the latest and greatest piece of kit.
Yeah. I mean, that would be my concern. Yeah. Are you fueling? That's the monster, right? Are you fueling that monster by providing it a steady IV drip of gear? I think it's a great thing because you if you're on that cycle and you feel like upgrading all the time, it's hard. These days it's not that hard to sell old gear, but it's kind of like walking over hot coals, and Craigslist, you're worried about getting scammed, and some of these other trade-in services, are you going to get what the thing is worth? So you end up just keeping it and letting it depreciate in the corner. This way, at least Autorama is a known source. They're gonna do the right thing, and you can also get the gear from them and sort of keep going forward, right?
Yeah, I guess the biggest question anybody that's wanting to switch up in a program like that is, is the trade-in or, buyback value going to be enough to suffice your needs or your requirements to buy the next one? Or are you getting a good price, or are you getting not a good price? It's completely undervalued and you're like, hey, no way, man, I can get 50% more than that, selling it privately. I guess that's the biggest question in these kind of scenarios with a buyback scheme is, are you getting enough for the one you're trading in?
Yeah. Yeah. Will you ever get enough?
Up to the individual.
Yeah. What's enough?
You never, you never will. I mean, electronics and things like that always depreciate in value no matter what. And obviously, a lot of, especially camera manufacturers, there are a lot of companies bringing out a lot of different models now at an expedited rate to cover different interests and different photographers and different types and different genres to fit those little niches. There's so much on offer now from so many brands. Hell, I mean, your camera's going to depreciate so quickly, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You should.
It's one of those tough pills you just have to swallow, I think, knowing it's going to lose money.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like buying a car, right? I mean, it's when the back two wheels leave the lot, still has a lot of its value, right? Same thing.
I mean, the difference being for people like myself being a commercial photographer is that my gear has a purpose to work for me, and it pays for itself and it earns money.
Yeah.
So although I may sell it at a lesser value than what I purchased it for, I know that thing's worked its ass off and it's earned me a living and it's paid its way. And hey, I don't mind selling it for 50% what I bought it for, because I know it's earned me 500% more than what I paid for it.
Yeah. And see, that's there's different mechanics at play there, because you're a working pro, and that's factored into your bottom line. I mean, I know some people that can, hey, they're doing a video job and they bid out in the quote that they need red cameras in order to do the do the job, but they get to keep the cameras, right? So the cameras are automatically, and then in the grand scheme of the budget, which is 7-8 figures, the cameras are nothing. It's a rounding error in there, especially if it means getting good work and getting it done on budget. So people like that and people like you can sort of factor in the cost of the gear into your work. But if you're not making any money with your camera gear, you don't have that luxury. So you kind of have to just eat it, right? And then move forward.
You got to swallow the pill. But I think as much as the manufacturers are guilty of feeding the consumer, I think the consumer is also a little bit guilty. The consumer market is guilty because of the demanding more from the manufacturer. So I think it's a vicious circle where one is feeding the other and the other one is feeding it back, and people are wanting more and more and more, and the manufacturers are giving them more and more and more, and the buyer wants more again, but for less money. Mm-hmm. So I think there are, one of their own vicious circles. They're fighting each other on that front. But give me a camera with some manual dials, man, and I'm happy.
Yeah, well, you're a pro.
It's all good. It's
like James Bond, right? Give James Bond anything, or MacGyver, or anything to get out of a sticky situation. They can get out of it. They don't necessarily need, the awesome gun and car. They can get out of anything with anything. All right, let's move on. And I want to be pretty quick on this next segment because it does look like we're still experiencing some internet issues. I want to remind the folks that are in the chat room, watching us live, etc., that this is being recorded and the replay will be posted hopefully this evening. So, and this means a lot of editing for me tonight, but we'll get into this. You planned this, Wayne John, because you got to stay up late. Now I got to stay up late to get this thing done.
Man, it's like 10 to 3 in the morning here.
Good. Now I don't care anymore. All right, man. Let's move on to the next topic. I want to remind the chat room, get your questions in there. We're still going to go through the show as normal. And get your questions into the chat, and when we get to the Q&A segment, we'll address them, provided the stream doesn't crash again. So Wayne, the next topic is DJI, right? So DJI, are you a drone owner? Do you own any sort of
Mavic Pro, yeah.
Oh yeah, so do I. Yeah, so you saw the news, right? From the news. So there was apparently some corruption inside of DJI where people were playing around with numbers, and
that's interesting.
It just to the tune of over $100 million that they're going to have to take in a loss this next time around, which. I don't know what DJI's bottom line is. If $100 million is like seat cushion money, or is it a big deal that's going to impact them going forward? Being the #1 drone manufacturer, I don't think it will affect them that much. But I'm curious as to what you think. You know, from the standpoint, I mean, people can read the article, and I'll put the article in the blog post for this episode.
Yeah.
But there's two facets that I'm curious about with this corruption thing. How does that affect, or how, and we're armchair quarterbacking here, we know nothing, but how do you think it will affect the product line and their release schedule? Then on the other side, how will it affect the competitive landscape? Has the beast been wounded and it's time to attack, or what? What do you think?
You see, well, I look at it, it's like if I mean, DJI have been, making leaps and bounds and lots of good stuff for a long time, and they've dominated the market with their products. Now, if they've only just noticed that there's some fraudulent activity going on within the business, and it's going to cost them up to $150 million, man, if they've only just noticed that it's going to cost them $150 million, they must be making a shitload of cash. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if it hasn't affected their current business and their current product releases and their current turnovers and cash flows, then, I think they're going to be pretty good for a while. And at the end of the day, people are still buying their product. The fraud is only internally, which I want to know more about, to be honest, because there's only a little snippet of information that internal employees have been bumping up prices. How does an employee bump up a price?
I know. Well, to suppliers, I would
how's
imagine.
How's that not governed by the by the big bosses? Or maybe it is the big bosses. Who knows?
Yeah, but even beyond that, when I read that, I was thinking, well, a lot of things are going on, but I was thinking, this is a Chinese company. Which by design, I don't know anything. I know nothing about Chinese companies, but I would think by design you could just keep it secret, right? Why is it news? Other than did one of the employees, and again, this is conjecture, right? But did one of the employees, threaten to go public or something? Like, why is this public? Why do we even know about it? Like a company like that, I just was like, okay, 100 million. All right, Joe and Sam, you're fired. All right, and we're going to prosecute you. You're going to jail. Let's fix this and move on. Versus TechCrunch story number one.
But the thing is, it's not like that. It's not like their products are faulty or their products are dangerous or their products are not up to standard. I mean, their products are, and they're damn good. Their technology is good. Their products are good. So this is just like a definitely a money fraudulent process going on, and somebody, backhanding the books a little bit, isn't it, for some cash rewards, but just a lot of it. But if you look at me, I don't know without looking, but I don't know what the annual net profit turnover of DJI is. Yeah. It would probably be good to look at their net profits in a year and then see if 150 million is a big dent or not. Right. Because, I know of fashion retailers, when the market crashed here a little bit last year, it hit the newspapers, the biggest retailer in the UK, and it said, they've lost 100 million turnover. The market's in trouble. What they forget to post up is they still made 680 million pounds net profit. Yeah. So, well, and the other thing is, they have such a rabid fan base. They're like the Apple of drones, right? So they could just say, 100 million. Looks like we're going to have to increase the price of the next Mavic by $10. By $10. Yeah,
$10.
Yeah. And they got it. Are we going to blink at that? We're not even going to blink at that, are we? It's like $10.
$10. I still got to have it. They could have increased it by 50. I still would have bought the thing, right? Looking at how we are sort of like, we started this conversation with the whole gear ecosystem. We're stuck in that DJI eddy, right? Whenever they come out with something, you'll probably buy it. I will depend if it's a Mavic Pro type series or drone, I'll probably buy it. And even if it's 10, 15, 20, 30, $50 more than what the old price was for them to make up, especially since I know that they lost $100 million. Yeah. And especially if they continue to be transparent and they say, you know what, sorry folks, we had that corruption issue, therefore this product has to be $10 more than it normally would be, blah, 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 something like that. What about you? Or would you buy the next drone if you knew it was slightly inflated due to this corruption issue?
I mean, if they're inflating it because it's corruption and they can't claim the money back to the company through their own insurances somehow or prosecution, I'll probably have a little bugbear about it. But at the end of the day, it's not the product that's at fault to us as the consumer.
Yeah.
So you know it's a good product. You know what you're buying. You know exactly what you're after and what it contains. So if the product was a bit faulty, I'd probably have be in two minds about buying another one. But hey, the product's still damn good, man. It's still one of the best on the market. So yeah, you'd end up buying it. Of course you would. $10, $20. Yeah.
Are you using drones in any of your commercial work?
No, not commercially. It's just more for my personal stuff and behind the scenes and little short films and things like that, which I'm doing more of this year now that I'm, stepping back from the commercial world a little bit to concentrate on other avenues and other projects. So now I get to integrate this kind of tech and features and advancements a lot more in my own work. Yeah, especially in my industry, the fashion industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I am primarily, still a stills photographer, not a videographer. Even though I do video and things, it's not part of my mainstream business per se.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I own a drone, but I'm one of those people that doesn't need to. I just like it. I just like it because I like flying around and looking at stuff and taking pictures. And
you see, we're all guilty of buying things we don't need.
No, I mean, you don't need any of this.
I'm the same, man. I buy cameras I don't need.
Yeah.
So.
I make no illusions. I mean, I spend enough money on stuff I do need, like all this, that you're looking at. So my justification is I should be able to buy a drone every now and then, if it makes me happy, because life is short. I'm only going to be this age one time, pretty soon I won't want to buy and fly a drone. So,
hey, when did that change? Normally when you wanted to buy something to make you happy, it'd be like a coffee and a cake. Now it's a drone. when did that get ramped up? I just buy a new camera. Oh, and 3 lenses. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we could always justify it somehow.
Yeah,
it was just like our phones. Yeah, of course. Of course, I need $1,000, $1,200 phone. Right, when they used to cost $200, of course I need it.
Because it scans through Facebook even quicker.
Yeah, because I can be tracked even easier. So.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we're all mad. I think we've all become techno whores, haven't we? Really, you know what I mean? We're buying things without even thinking about what we're buying now. We just go, oh, another one, man, gotta have it. Bam, there's my card, there's my cash. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah. No, I know.
We're all guilty of it.
Hey, guilty pleasures, but I feel like such a hypocrite because he spent the whole first part of the show talking about the high ground of f-stop shutter speeds and ISO, and Ansel Adams could do it with a view camera and all this stuff. But when it comes to drones, of course I need.
Yeah, but hey, we were going to get with that, saying that we're all guilty of it, even top professionals. I just bought another medium format. I didn't need it, but I just bought it. You know what I mean?
It makes you feel good. I like opening boxes. So what of it? All right.
It's all mine.
All right. Well, that's enough about DJI. Let's dive into the next segment. The next segment is we call it the Picks of the Week segment. And it's a segment where myself and the guests can pick a piece of gear or software or training or even a shooting technique that they want to share with the audience for this week. Wayne, I'm going to throw it to you first, man. What's your pick of the week?
My pick of the week, you see, I was a bit greedy this week, wasn't I? I sort of put 3 options up there, didn't I?
Cool. I mean, perfect.
Okay, can I have all 3?
It is called Picks of the Week, so go for it.
Picks? Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, well, my first one, really, we're talking about camera tech, and this is for video gear, really, or, using DSLRs or mirrorless cameras, and that's gimbals. There's... you got your Ronin S and your fanatics and your Zhiyun cranes and things, and Zhiyun or Zhiyun as they're pronounced have recently brought out and released, and it's now available to buy over here in the UK anyway. The Weeble Lab and the Zhiyun Zhiyun 3, which is the bigger version. And it's slightly different shape and sort of format than, say, the previous version 2 and like the Ronin S. So you can drop it over with a carry handle straight away, sort of at an overhang position, and you screw the legs off and screw the legs back on. It's awesome. It arrived today, and it's not mine. It's actually my intern's. He's bought one. As soon as they released in the UK, he purchased one. So we've thrown a camera on today, balanced it up. And man, it's lovely. It is so well built and so well finished. Really, really impressed. And hats off to Ziyun for building such a good gimbal system.
Nice.
Yeah, really, really impressed. Yeah,
I've
very
seen
impressed.
that. I've seen that online with some people using those things, and they do, they are pretty amazing. It's a pretty amazing. I mean, we talk about technology a lot, right? And it's pretty amazing what you can, with the quality of footage that you can get these days with what's available for relatively low. I mean, it used to be you had to buy, the big Steadicam rig and all this other stuff in order to get stabilized footage. And now that's not the case anymore. I mean, still, Hollywood, of course, is going to do that kind of stuff, but you can get pretty close with off the rack Amazon Prime stuff, right?
I know, man. Well, I still got Steadicams here, and trying to teach my intern how to use a Steadicam was, wow, man, he needs a gimbal.
Yeah.
He can't operate a Steadicam at all, man. I've never seen such shaky Steadicam footage in all my life than what my intern provides.
Oh, jeez.
Hopefully now he's got a gimbal, man. It'll be smooth.
They'll have smooth shakes, right? Tell him to stop drinking coffee before the shoots. You'll be good to go.
All that sugar he eats, I'm sure of it, man.
What's your second pick?
My second pick is here we go, hypocrite all over again, man, about buying gear. And I've recently picked up the Fujifilm GFX 50R. Of course, that's a medium format rangefinder style. Style is emphasized there because it's not a rangefinder style medium format camera. So it's basically the same guts, same insides as a GFX 50S, but in a different ergonomics of body and rangefinder. So it's a bit like the XT2 or XT3 style, but of course it's a 51.4 megapixel beast. A little bit lighter, a little bit more portable, and a little bit nicer looking. Did I need it? No. Did I buy it? Yes, Wayne, you big hypocrite. But good thing is I still use it in manual mode.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but that's cool.
All that. Well, you spent all that money on that. Awesome. You spent all the money on that new tech, and you shoot it in manual.
Yeah. Hey, I just love the quality of that manual.
It's like, hey, I got a brand new Tesla, but I'm going to put a gas engine in it because.
Yeah. That's right. Well, the thing is, it hasn't really come out with any more additional features than what the GFX 50S already has. But I think Fuji were getting, demand for a rangefinder style medium format for those that come from the rangefinder film days. Mm-hmm. Those diehards that like that style. So, Fujifilm listened to it and they delivered, and it's beautiful. Yeah, really beautiful. And it's cheaper than the 50S as well by a couple of grand.
Beautiful. And that's the Fujifilm GFX 50R, right?
Yeah. Really nice.
All right. And
so happy with that.
Your third pick, something amazing.
And my third pick is a blatant self-plug, and that is Podlemania Podcast. Nice. And of course, that's my own photography and video podcast channel. It's in its infancy. Episode 3 has only just been released. But yeah, please, it's, we're interviewing lots of creative talents from both the photography and video world, both photographers, directors, and all the other people below them that help make up that creative industry. And we're interviewing those across the globe. So we got a year's worth of content already stacking up. So
very cool.
Yeah, a lot of interesting people all over the place. Yeah, so you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, Spotify, and Google Podcasts and places like that. So yeah, Podlemania, please go and subscribe to us on there. Be awesome.
And we'll put a link to that in the blog post for this episode too. So
thank you.
In case people have problems spelling Podlemania, right?
Podlemania.
We'll have to do a different show and talk about that name and where that came from. So I'm curious. I'm curious. Well, cool, man. So three good picks: the Ziyun Steadicam gimbal thingamajigger, the Fujifilm GFX 50R, and your podcast, the Podlemania podcast, available on podcast distribution platforms all over the planet. Very
yes,
cool.
Indeed.
All
yes.
Right. And my pick, we talked about my pick a little bit, and that's the Adorama gear buyback program. I made a short link to it, TWiP.pro/Adorama. That is not an affiliate link or anything, but TWiP.pro/Adorama will take you over directly to the page where you can punch in the gear that you have, and it'll tell you how much they're going to give you for it. So it's kind of cool just to like sit on the couch while you're Netflixing and chilling and seeing how much money you could make for the gear that's rotting away in your closet. Definitely go check that out.
Hey,
yeah. TWiP.pro/Adorama. All right, man. Let's dive into the listener Q&A. These are the questions that came in before the live stream crashed. Right. So
several times.
So folks that are listening to this after the fact, you've listened to a contiguous, beautifully edited show. And the live stream was not that. This is part 3 of a severely compromised live stream. But before it got compromised, the people that were in the chat room posed these questions. The first one is from Janet Robinson. And Janet says, where do you think the megapixel war will end? And who needs 100 more megapixels? Wayne, you're the perfect person to ask this. Who needs 100 more megapixels?
Do you know what? I ask the same question. I mean, I look at some of my image files. You know, my medium formats are 51.4 megapixels, which you know, the quality of them is so good. The dynamic range of the camera is so good. You know, we've already got 100 megapixels. There's 150 megapixels. Fujifilm are bringing out 100 as well, and it's like, man, I asked the same question as you know, that's been put to us. It's do we need it? Again, I don't know. I don't know where the world's going with it. It's I wouldn't want to retouch one of those. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, if you, especially in my industry, if you're doing fashion and beauty, you know, as much as it gives us beautiful images, it shows every flaw in much more detail.
But do you want that? Don't you want to be able to see those flaws so that you can retouch them out? You know, so
yeah,
don't you want to see the hair coming out of the pore so that you can digitally pull it out?
Yeah, but there's seeing sort of a flaw, and there's seeing everything that's not a flaw that suddenly looks like a flaw. You know, the detail is already so good, that it's getting to levels of extreme. So I don't think, you know, 150 megapixels would be would be used very much for beauty photography. Not only that, you've got to think of the file size of those damn things.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the RAWs out of my camera are like over 120 megabytes of RAW per shot. You know, that's massive. You know, for editing, as a 16-bit TIFF, that's about 350 megs per image.
Oh my god, yeah.
You know, it's huge. But so if you triple that, 150 megapixel camera, man, they're ginormous files, ginormous.
Yeah. You know what I think of when I start hearing those kind of numbers? I think of one of the first computers I owned, which was a Commodore 64. You remember those? You remember those back in the day?
Well, yeah, I had
Commodore
one,
64, and the 64 was because it had 64K of RAM. 64K. And you're sitting over here talking, 100 plus megabytes. We didn't even know what a megabyte was, right?
Yeah.
Even the floppies were 640K, right? So 64, like you're talking megabytes. I'm like, just for image data, right? It is just mind blowing the sizes of things. And we're just in 2019. Like 2030 is, you know, they're going to be laughing at our little 100 megapixel files.
It's going to be surreal. I don't know where it's going, but not only that, you've got to think of how much additional storage and RAID storage and the speed of storage you're going to need to buy to save those, read them and write them to drives. You know what I mean? It's going to be phenomenal. It's going to cost you a fortune in hardware to store them.
Yeah, let alone cloud backup and all that, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
Craziness. All right. Well, I think Janet's question, where do we think the megapixel war will end? I think it's ending, to be honest with you. I think, you know, I don't hear in some areas like, you know, Micro Four Thirds trying to inch up to get closer to, you know, get more, squeeze more megapixels out of those sensors. I think the race is still on there a little bit, but for the most part, you know, I think, especially considering them, I don't have metrics or numbers, but a lot of the work today is shared online. That's its final destination is a screen of some sort, which means you don't necessarily need all that data to throw. You're just going to throw it away anyway when you crop and resize down to upload it, right?
Exactly. That's it. And with the way digital media goes, where does most of it end up? On the web anyway. You're saving it out as a small file, less than 10 megabytes, and it's an sRGB, and it's going on social media and Instagram and all those places. Yeah. So well, again, that's like everything else, sometimes we like excess for no particular reasons. We do. I think this episode has been a lot about excesses, really, hasn't it? It's come back to excessiveness.
Yeah, excess. We should come up with some play on words with the word excessive. All right, the second question is from Ruth Happel. Hey, Ruth. Ruth says, what feature would be worth upgrading to for even if you're happy with your current camera? Yeah, I kind of asked you this. What do you think? What features are missing from your current Fuji, magical camera? What do you need in there that you don't have?
Did you mean what features are missing from a camera, or what additional things should she buy if she's happy with the camera?
I think she said, what feature would be worth upgrading to for even if you are happy with your current camera? So I think, if you're going to upgrade, what would entice you to upgrade?
Yeah, well, I guess the first question is, it depends what type of photographer you are. If you're a sports photographer and you haven't mastered, and you're not a professional that's been working it for years, and you haven't mastered your focus tracking, or you don't know how to change those settings in your camera properly to get your camera to be optimized, because that's half the problem sometimes. The features are already in the camera. We just haven't gone in and changed the settings to optimize it to work in our environments. I think that's a lot of the problem. But, if you want something with more accurate, faster autofocus tracking or eye focusing, like the Sonys and Fujis are coming out with better advancements all the time, I would probably say if it's got technology in it that suits the area of photography that you do and you think it'll be a benefit, then, yeah, sure, think about it, upgrading, if it'll help you. Yeah. If it'll help you.
I think that's the magic phrase right there. If it's going to help you get closer to your goal, then consider it. Don't just buy things just because, hey, one day, I may need this 600 millimeter lens. So just in case I need it one day, because there may be a deer way across the field that I can't capture, so I'm going to get it. Right. So and then it'll sit in the corner and you'll end up selling it to Outerama. And then you're
had a big loss and you never made you any money. And you're going to kick yourself.
Or, you're on the other end because Outerama also sells used gear. So you pick up that slightly used 600 millimeter for a song, right?
That you sold them to buy the 800. Yeah. No, I think at the end of the day, all this tech is good, but like we said previously, I think you still need to support it by mastering the skill to begin with. Yeah. You need that as a foundation. You need that foundation, because if you're relying on everything that's electronic, then all of a sudden you're in a position where you still need to get your shots, and your only way to get it is to use your foundational skill in your craft to do it in a manual version like you used to. If you don't have that, or you don't know why anything electronic has gone wrong in your camera because you don't understand the settings or how it works, then you're going to be in a position where you're going to be absolutely stuck. And you'll just be like, I can't shoot, my camera's not working. Yeah. You don't ever want to be in that position where you have to say that, that's extreme. So, if you think it's going to work for you, and you've got the money for it, then hey, go for it. But I would say just take a look back at your foundations and see if you can improve those as well. And maybe, if you can't do it by yourself, there's plenty of online courses out there and workshops where for a little bit of money, you can go and learn something that you never knew existed, and it'll make you a far better photographer just in practical application.
Sage words. See? Very wise words, and they're even wiser when they come from somebody with a beard and that cool, UK accent is perfect.
Just explain to your viewers, I didn't have a beard before in the last one. I grew it from Movember for the charity, and it's kind of still stayed there at the moment.
It's cool. I would keep it. I like it. It rounds you out. It anchors you. Keep it. All right. Our third and final question comes from Roz Bushcraft, I think. And Ross says, what's the main reason for depreciation of value with camera gear? Some cameras I have sold never seem to devalue as fast compared to other forms of equipment. What do you think?
I think it depends on what camera you've got, what level it's at, how expensive it was in the beginning, whether it's still seen as a worthy pro tool or a value. You know, some cameras may not be high end on a professional build quality in internal workings, but they may be valuable in a monetary value because they may be limited or something. So, you know, if you go out and buy a Canon EOS, I'm just using 5000. I don't even know if that's a model, to be fair. I'm just making it up. If you go out and buy an EOS 5000, generally the higher the number in the Canon range, the cheaper the camera. You know, EOS 1 is the most expensive. The EOS 5000 or whatever is getting at a cheaper end. So if you've got something like an EOS 5000 that is made in the millions, it's gonna depreciate very, very quickly and not be worth
Supply
much.
and demand.
Supply and demand. Yeah. If you buy a Leica, you know, or you know, a camera I had years ago was a Hasselblad limited edition 50th anniversary 24 karat gold version, and there's only 50 in the world. It's going to hold its value.
Yeah.
Yes, it's supply and demand.
Plain old supply and demand, and it's the brand too. You know, to be frank, I mean, you know, like a Lumix or Canon or Nikon is not going to have the same brand weight as a Leica, right? Or a Hasselblad. You know, it's just,
exactly.
It's, you know, it's BMW and Mercedes versus, you know, no disrespect to the other brands, but, you know, lesser car companies, you know, or more mass market car companies versus luxury brand that people automatically know they're going to pay a premium for. You know, the same thing translates over to cameras. You know, your Leica has f-stops and shutter speeds and ISOs just like my Panasonic cameras. That will get us to the same destination, generally speaking, you know, with some subjectivity sprinkled in. But they'll get us to the same location. But that Leica is going to move the decimal point over 1 or 2 spots from the camera that I'm shooting with, right? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's horses for courses with all of it. You know, it's no different than buying jewelry. You go and buy a 1 carat diamond, and you go and buy, you know, a shiny stone. It's not a diamond. They both look pretty and they both shine and glimmer. But hey, one's worth a lot more than the other one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, cool. Well, thank you, folks, for your questions. I wish we could have got more in, but like I said, we had some extreme difficulties, which I will get on Scotty, the engineer, about and see if we can get those worked out before we set out again. Any last words on these questions?
No, I think, you know, it comes back to it that people got to remember there is no right way, there is no wrong way. There are just different ways of doing things for different reasons. And if you're not technical, but you've got an eye, then hey, go and shoot, love it, enjoy it, and create beautiful imagery. If you're looking at the images in a technical point of view, you're a different kind of photographer, and you've got that technical skill set, that's right as well.
Yeah.
They're both right, you know.
That's the cool thing about this career / hobby is there are guidelines, but there are no really hard and fast rules, right? Because in the end, you're creating art, you know, which is subjective by nature anyway. So who's going to right?
Yeah. And we're taking it to different destinations, you know. I mean, I still have this, not this battle, but you know, people say, oh, you know, shoot it, get it right in camera. Yeah, but you don't know what I'm doing with that final image. You know, maybe taking a portrait of you, Frederick, but hey, taking a picture of you in your office, but by the time I finish with it, you're coming out of a spaceship landing on the moon.
That's right.
People don't know where the final image is going to the final piece of art. So,
I love it, especially these days, you know,
especially these days.
Love it. Well, cool, man. Well, good. We'll end it in that segment on that note. Before we continue with the close here, I want to once again thank our sponsor for this episode. And that's our friends over at WPPI. And remember, WPPI combines educational seminars with major industry trade show and networking events, all designed around learning the latest techniques and building relationships and growing your business in a friendly and fun environment, all at one time in one place. And if you want to get $30 off your Expo Pass, which makes it free because it costs $30. So if you want to get your Expo Pass for free, just head over to WPPIExpo.com/TWiP. That's WPPIExpo.com/TWiP. And WPPI is coming up next month in February, just before Valentine's Day. So might make sense for you to head over and get hooked up. All right. That's it for that. Wayne Johns, man, thanks for coming on. Thanks for staying up
My
so
pleasure.
late. You stayed up into the middle of the night. I was teasing you, and because I teased you and I made fun of those gremlins at the beginning of the show, they descended on me.
They bit you in the ass.
And destroyed the live stream. I'm sorry, gremlins. I did not mean to just anger you. Jeez, man.
No, it's my pleasure, man. And anytime I look forward to more. And maybe next time the stream will run smoothly without the gremlins, and we can take Q&A live and get people some nice answers to some other questions.
Absolutely. Let us hope so. So if people want to connect with you, where's a good place to look at Wayne Johns' work, or otherwise chat with you, or any of that stuff?
Yeah, well, the best place to find me, I'm probably most active at the moment on Instagram. That's just Instagram at WayneJohns_photographer. Obviously, you got my website, WayneJohns.com. I'm Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. They're pretty much all Wayne Johns photographer or _photographer. And of course, for those interested in the photo and video world, you can also head over to podlemania.podbean.com for our podcast, or just type in Podlemania in any of the other podcast players, and you will find us in there. As I say, it's in its infancy, but we've got some amazing guests on there already, and some more amazing ones coming up.
That's very cool. Congratulations on that, man. It looks like you guys you're off to a really good start, which is important. You know, the magic of podcasting is sustaining, right? And the other magic of it is nights like this, when everything that could go wrong goes wrong, and you still do it next week.
Man, I'm doing an interview. I'm doing a podcast recording tomorrow. So
let's hope all the gremlins. Let's hope I drew all the gremlins over here to California and away from the UK. So you should be good. All right, man. Well, thank you so much, folks. I will put all of Wayne's URLs in the blog post for this episode. So you don't have to remember anything. They will all be in there. All right, folks, that's it for another episode of This Week in Photo. Remember, you can subscribe to TWiP via our website over at thisweekinphoto.com. Just click on the subscribe link in the menu at the top, or you can subscribe to us on YouTube if you want. We're there as well, and sometimes we're streaming live when it works. So you can just head over to YouTube, search for This Week in Photo. You'll find us, and subscribe. If you subscribe, you'll be notified when we post the notifications that we're going to be going live. And typically post those a couple of hours or more before we go live, so that you can, get situated, get your popcorn and all that stuff. And if you did watch the show on YouTube, make sure you give us a thumbs up so that we can get the credit, and the YouTube robots will pay more attention to us. So I appreciate that. All right, folks, that's the end of another episode of This Week in Photo. It is time to take that lens cap off. This is TWiP.